Welcome to another episode of Pivotal Moments. I am so, as always, very excited to just have this conversation and talk to so many amazing people about their moment, the thing that kind of changed things for them. So today is going to be another very special episode. I am happy to have Pamela J. Pine joining the conversation. And Pamela, among many things, is the director of Stop the Silence, which is a department in the Institute of Violence, Abuse, and Trauma, as well as an artist and an author. And I'm so glad to just have you on the show today and to talk with you. So without further delay, I want to introduce Pamela to the show. And Pamela, I know I said a little bit about what you do, but just let's go on even more about who you are and what you do.
Thank you for the invite to do that, and the invite in general. I've been a international public health communication and development specialist for a very, very long time, decades. And I work and have worked internationally for those decades, literally around the world, from anywhere, everywhere, from Latin America through to the other side of the world to Oceania, every continent except the continental caps, the polar caps. My focus for the first 20 years of my career were on some of the world's largest and most difficult problems. They were things like maternal child health, family planning, reproductive health, leprosy, HIV, tuberculosis, and as you may imagine, these diseases in other places in the world are truly grave, and they're killers. They're killers. So I did that, and then I've continued to do that as well. But 21 years ago, I got very, very involved with the issue of child sexual abuse. And what happened was I got some information across my desk electronically from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, and I started reading, and I read, and I read, and I read. And I had at that point been a public health person for 20 years plus. And I knew nothing about child sexual abuse. And given the impact on those children and the adolescents and adults they become, and the numbers were off the charts. And what we still say today in the United States is that more than 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 6 boys is sexually molested by the time they're 18 years old. Those statistics are outrageous. And the focus on prevention and healing and mitigation has got to be stronger. And it has gotten stronger. But it's not where it needs to be. The money's not where it needs to be. The comprehensive approach to it is not where it needs to be. So I focused on all of those things, primarily, not exclusively. I also do the other stuff sometimes, and I'm also a professor of public health with a university, and I teach public health courses. But what we're trying to do is truly prevent, treat, and mitigate child sexual abuse, and now also other adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs. And there are a list of them that include physical abuse, psychological abuse, an incarcerated parent, a one-parent household, violence in the household, et cetera, et cetera. So these kids really, the fact is that unless and until we can bring children up well and safely, we are going to have a world that we have. I tell this, it's cute and it's anecdotal, but it's also poignant. There is a movie with Ben Stiller, which you and many other people I'm sure have seen, A Night at the Museum. And there's that, the statues and the animals, everything comes to life at a certain point in the night. And toward the end of the movie, Genghis Khan, who's been running around trying to fight everything in his path, right, crawls up into Ben Stiller's arms and says, I was not treated well as a child, and he's crying. And it's funny and it's poignant at the same time, because if we were able to take care of these kids, well, these kids would be turning out differently. So, that's who I am, and that's where my focus is still, on those aspects of child sexual abuse and ACEs, other adverse childhood experiences, and the prevention, treatment, and mitigation of those, literally worldwide.
Wow. I mean, first of all, just to commend you on the work that you have done now, like you said, for a couple of decades. And it's not easy work. It's not cute and fun.
It's not.
It's hard and painful, but you show up and you do it, and you're trying to make a different tomorrow. And I just really want to commend you for that and really appreciate that.
Thank you. Our work centers, by the way, Lida, on a lot of outreach and advocacy, on education and training. So, for example, we have various online trainings that are cheap and quick, and that you can really pick up a lot of information. In fact, I don't know if we can put, you can send out a link to your folks, but I could.
Yeah, we'll put those in the show notes for sure.
In an hour and a half to 2 hours, you can absorb a huge amount of understanding and information about child sexual abuse and ACEs and trafficking as well. But we've also done major advocacy events. The Race to Stop the Silence took place in downtown Washington, D.C. for 10 years. At its height, we had 1,200 runners and walkers on their back saying, "Stop the silence, stop child sexual abuse." I mean, it really broke the ice. We had Channel 4 and Channel 7 and Channel 9. We had Maryland Public Television. We had CNN. We had Washington Post. Our ads were on NPR. I mean, we're talking about major airwaves here, with people hearing a prevention and treatment and mitigation message. So that's where we're continuing to push out.
Wow. So with all of this work, again, we're talking about that pivotal moment. So, and I know you also, as we mentioned earlier, you're an author and you're working on some amazing projects there. So let's talk about the pivotal moment and how it just relates to kind of this new part of being an author and these amazing books that you're a part of.
Yeah. I love the idea of that pivotal moment. That's a brainchild there, because sometimes that's exactly how it happens. Something changes. May not be palpable. It may not be conscious at first, at least. And then all of a sudden we find ourselves sort of going down a bit of a different path, And I think for me, what happened was, I had been working on all these really, really difficult problems for a very, very long time, and child sexual abuse specifically. And in around 2017, my body, my mind, and my psyche no longer gave me a choice. And I had been working easily 12 to 16 hours days for I don't know how long. The only time I wasn't working was taking care of my kids, and trying to put aside the work so that I could do that. And we all know that struggle, or people who are parents know that struggle of, if you're not at work, you're feeling guilty about the kids. And if you're not with the kids, if you're with your kids, you're feeling a bit upset about the work that you're not getting done. And truly, my whole being just screamed, "Stop."
Wow.
And I didn't stop, but I really put a halt on the level of energy that was going toward me developing all these programs and projects and pushing it all through. I work obviously with a lot of survivors of child sexual
Yeah.
abuse, and many of them have really difficult issues going on. And so I'm listening to that a lot as well. And I'm taking all of that stuff in, and it's sad. So basically, I heard myself saying, you need to, one, slow down. Two, you need to get back to some kind of creative endeavor. And I had been thinking about writing for years, actually. I mean, not very, very, very long time, but it was definitely years. And I'm a painter, and that I've done forever, ever since I was a little girl. So just at the end of this past year, I put up a studio in my backyard, a painting studio. I'm waiting for the electric. The ground is too hard. So in April, we'll get the electric back there.
Awesome.
And I started talking to a woman named Rochelle Marie Lawson, who is an author and also a woman who really pushes forward other women. And she was coming out, and she was inviting women to come forward with chapters for this book called Unstoppable, Fierce, Fearless, and Unf-withable in life and in business. And so she accepted a chapter from me and 20 some odd other women. And the way it's structured is that we tell stories that we have in our minds, our hearts, our experience. And at the end of the chapter, there is a place to provide tools for other women and men from the wisdom, honestly, that we've gained in our lives about how to get through some of the things that we've lived through. So there's that book, and she introduced me to the woman who has the publishing company, and her name is Laura DeFranco, and she has a publishing company called Brave Healer Productions. And Laura is a total dynamo, and she is producing one after the next bestsellers. So she invited me to write a chapter in a book called Strong Mothers, More Than a Survival Guide. So I have a chapter in that, and that's coming out as well. And I'm in the process of writing my own book, which is helping me just kind of draw pieces of my life and put them together and make sense of what I've seen, what I've lived, who I've had experiences with, what those experiences have been. And that's the way it kind of came down. So I find myself still doing the technical stuff with Stop the Silence and teaching, but I have made time, much more time, for those avenues that enrich our own souls and hopefully add to the lives of other people.
That is amazing. What would you say, Pamela, that is something that you've learned from this process? The thing maybe you've learned about yourself that is just unchangeable, and something, that you've really just learned about yourself through this whole thing.
Well, I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, and I said to her, "You've been listening to me talk about starting to write something for years." And she said, "Yeah, I have." And so and the reason I didn't do it, I know why. I was afraid. I didn't know if I could do it. I didn't know how it would sound. I didn't know how I would feel. And so I guess one of the things that I learned is something I knew about myself, but not in this realm. And that is that if I put my attention to something, if I make a commitment to something, if I decide to actually do something, I will do it. And I think that's true probably for the vast majority of people. We all come from different circumstances. We all have different supports or lack thereof. But I think if we really hold in our hearts and our minds and our souls that there is something that we have to contribute, and we make that step towards doing it, we can do it. We can do it. And so I guess I showed myself that I could do something that I really wasn't sure whether I could or not. I really, really was not. I never tried, I've done technical writing. I've done published articles. This is a whole different bear, So that's been really good to find out about myself. It's also opened me up, the heart channel and all that kind of stuff. Because I probably there's an aspect to me that has been, it's interesting. People find me very, very, very open. There's a real part of me that's pretty guarded. And I think learning how to get to that point that we can share and open up and bring people in, knowing that we know how to protect ourselves if a need should arise, is a critical thing to learn for ourselves. Don't you think?
Absolutely. I mean, as you were saying it, I was just thinking like, wow, that's so powerful, because it's so true to be able to share ourselves, but yet in a protected way, but be open in that space is it can be a challenge, but it's necessary when we think about just a community healing, right? Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. And so it's brought me into this circle of other women, which is really, really nice. And I look forward. I'm excited about something actually going forward personally, but it has an impact on my, I think, both professional and personal self. And that is, I've worked all these years overseas. I mean, lots and lots of places, lots and lots of time. I have not been back to Morocco since 1983. And I'm going to go meet a friend there. And she asked me what I was excited most about doing this with her and possibly one or two other women as well. And what I said was that the Arab world, the Americans have a very particular view of the Arab world. The Arab world and most people in it, in fact, are incredibly open and inviting and hospitable and kind and giving and all of those wonderful things. And when you go to another culture and live in it, like I've done, one gets the opportunity to express oneself in a way that other parts of the world and people express themselves. And the Arabs are so much fun, and they are so heartfelt, and they're so out there, typically, that what I'm really most looking forward to is being able to feel that again. Because living outside of Washington, D.C., it is such a cloistered and insular and closed environment. If we can for each other bring those aspects of other cultures and other peoples and others' lives forward and share them, it would also help change the world. So, that kind of communing and that kind of communication and embracing of other people, is something I'd like more of. I really would. And so I'm really happy to go, hang out with my Arab brothers and sisters
I
again for a
love it.
while.
I love it. You are
Yeah.
just so amazing. It is, we don't talk often, but when we do, it's just always so refreshing
Yeah.
and encouraging and enjoyable. Before we leave, are you able to just read a little portion of the book to us?
Yeah.
Would love that.
Yeah. I'll read a portion of Strong Women. Give me a time frame. Do I have a few
Sure,
minutes?
sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to read. It starts. I'm going to read out starting with the first paragraph and then skip down
Okay.
quite a bit. Um, Dropping my daughter Lisa off at her first day of college in September of 2000. By the way, this is called The Year of Near Dying: Surviving the Projected Death of a Child. So not, pretty heavy stuff. I'll start again. Dropping my daughter off Lisa at her first day of college in September of 2012, I could see she was a bit scared. Not atypical for a young person just off for college. It can be somewhat iffy emotionally. She was a sensitive kid, and being on one's own when one is that can be trying. When she called the next day, I sensed panic in her voice. I'm not happy, Mom. I'm worried about my classes and about getting along with my roommate. More calls from Lisa in the following days and weeks indicated loneliness and mild depression. I was concerned, but not overly. She needed to adjust. Lisa went to see a counselor for guidance who prescribed an antidepressant. The combination worked well. Lisa thrived, made good friends, got involved in activities, and did well in her classes. And her blonde hair, gray-green eyes, delicate features, and long, shapely form helped her get attention from everyone, including the boys. Everything was going well until it didn't. I'm going to skip down quite a bit here. One morning in early September 2020, her father came to go for a walk with Lisa and couldn't wake her. He came to tell me. I ran upstairs and moved her limp body to the floor and administered cardiopulmonary resuscitation, CPR, and screamed to her father to call 911. We had no idea what had happened. There were no bottles or vials in the room. I had been controlling her medications. I had only given her one tranquilizer the night before because of her high-level anxiety. Still, we assumed the worst, that she had tried somehow to harm herself with some type of medication. The EMTs arrived and continued CPR, hooked her up with oxygen, paddled her, and took her to the hospital at 2 a.m. The hospital called me. Lisa was very sick, they said. They flew her to the hospital where she could receive a higher level of care. I arrived as they put her on a breathing support and inserted a feeding tube. Her kidneys and liver were shutting down. They administered medications and hooked her up to a kidney dialysis. I was in disbelief and overwhelmed with grief. A little more? Can I keep going a little more or no? Okay. The next day, the information came at me as if in a dream. The doctors told me Lisa had suffered a cardiac arrest, which limited the amount of oxygen to her brain, causing extensive brain damage, affecting motor coordination, short-term memory, and loss of her sight. The doctors did not think she would live. If she did survive, they said she would need both a liver and a kidney transplant, and she would probably not be able to walk again given the extent of the damage to her cerebellum, which helps with the coordination and movement, and the damage to short-term brain functions. So even if she took a step, she would not be able to retain the learning of how to walk. If she lived, she would likely be a blind quadriplegic with little or no life fulfillment. The only news that could have been worse was that she had died. I sat in a meeting with the primary staff involved with her care and with her father on a Zoom screen. The palliative care department at the hospital concluded she would not have much of a life if she survived. They said I had one only small window to decide. If they removed the breathing and feeding tube, she would die. As a single mother, it was up to me to decide what would happen to my baby. I asked if they were certain Lisa would unlikely recover and re-engage in life. They said, it's pretty darn sure she wouldn't. I asked about brain function and young people's recoveries I had read about. The The hospital staff reiterated it was not likely she would recover. I looked at the Zoom screen and more than said, moaned, we are going to lose her, and broke down crying. And I can't do this. So I'll let you read the rest of it. The good news, the wonderful news, is that Risa is applying for graduate school. She's got 20/20 vision. Her motor coordination is absolutely fine. She makes scarves for her friends, talks to them on a daily basis, works out daily. Her abs are like a rock. And so there was a lot that I learned out of that experience. I mean, devastating doesn't even begin to touch what happened here, but it was the refusal. I should put it another way. It was the commitment to do whatever could be done for her to not only survive, but thrive. And we come across these kinds of situations, but perhaps not that dire, but situations in which people are telling us, it can't be done, it won't be done, it shouldn't be done, you can't do it. I've never accepted those well. And I'm really, really glad that I haven't.
Wow, Pamela, I can barely even just get myself together here. I mean, it's just such a powerful experience. And, I know I didn't even know what was going on. I knew I had seen certain, posts that there was something going on, but to even just hear a snippet of what you went through and what the past, couple years have been like for you, but yet just where she is now. And like you said, the power of not giving up.
Right. I mean, she is my miracle baby. She is. And you may remember at one point, I mean, when this whole thing started, it was September of 2020. It was September 8th. And September 9th, I was in the hospital being told that it wasn't a question. They gave her a 10% chance of living. She was going to die. Okay. That's what I was told. And you may or may not remember, I got on social media, and I know people all over the world. And I said, everybody, I didn't go into details. Everybody, I really, really, really need to ask you to hold my daughter in your heart and your thoughts. She's very sick. She needs as much good and positive energy as all of you can muster.
I remember.
And they did. And, I'll tell you, I don't know about this stuff. I'm not a shaman, or I don't know. I'm not even religious, but I'm a spiritual person. And anything that moves positive energy, as woo-woo as that sounds to anyone, I don't care. There is an aspect of what we can do for each other in that realm that I believe is real.
Wow. Oh, wow. This has just been amazing. Pamela, I can't thank you enough for just coming on Pivotal Moments and sharing your story, a bit of your story. I will definitely have the information, the links in the show notes, so that people can not only read your amazing story, but get these books and read just the amazing stories of other women and follow what you're doing. You are just one of the most amazing women that I've ever met. The work you do, the way you care for people, it's just, you are an amazing person, and I'm honored to know you.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much. And the same goes for you as well. I have watched you. I have watched
Yeah.
your
Yes.
rise and your
Yeah.
change for
Yeah.
years at this point. And we can help each
Yes.
other do this.
Yes.
We can. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we will sign off there once again. Thank you so much for coming on Pivotal Moment. Ah, such an
Thank you for having
amazing,
me.
amazing conversation. And again, we will talk one day soon. Who knows when, but it's always a powerful, amazing conversation.
You owe
I
me a cup
sure
of
do.
coffee.
I absolutely do. And I will make sure that I make that happen. So I look forward to that.
Very
Thank
good.
you. And
Thank
thank you to
you.
you all listening, watching. Thank you for tuning into this podcast, to the show, Pivotal Moments. As always, I appreciate your support, continued support. And we will see you next time on Pivotal Moments.